Have you ever noticed that some people feel energized after spending hours around other people, while you feel relieved the moment you're finally alone? Not because you're shy, not because you dislike people, and not because you don't know how to socialize. In fact, you may enjoy people, you may enjoy conversation, you may even enjoy being around others for a while. But sooner or later, something inside you starts craving silence. A quiet room, a walk alone, time away from the noise. And if you've spent years wondering why solitude feels more nourishing than socializing for you, psychology has a fascinating answer. Because your preference for being alone may reveal something far deeper than personality, and that something psychology says is not a flaw. It's actually the opposite. Here's what most people get wrong about this. They assume that preferring solitude means something is missing, that you're avoiding life, that you haven't quite figured out how to connect with people the way everyone else has. Psychology says something completely different. Choosing solitude over socializing isn't avoidance, it's selection. It's a specific, high-functioning psychological pattern that reflects not what you're running from, but what your mind genuinely needs to function at its best. You're not avoiding people, you're choosing yourself, and that choice reveals more about the depth and quality of your mind than most people ever realize. Because I think a lot of you have lived this quietly for years, and nobody has ever explained it back to you accurately. You turn down invitations without guilt. You feel energized by silence rather than drained by it. Your best thinking happens alone. You prefer one deep conversation over 10 shallow ones. And you've been told your entire life you should get out more. You've quietly wondered, more than once, whether preferring your own company means something is wrong with you. It doesn't. We're going through 7 specific psychological reasons why you choose solitude over socializing, where each one comes from, what each one reveals about the quality of your mind, and why every single one of them is a sign of strength, not weakness. Stay with me. Let's start with the most foundational reason, the one that underlies everything else. Reason 1, the selective socialization filter. You don't hate people. You hate superficiality. Your brain runs a filter that most people simply don't have, one that automatically evaluates whether a social interaction will offer genuine depth or surface-level exchange. Whether the conversation is going to reach the level of substance your mind requires to feel genuinely engaged, or whether it's going to stay safely, predictably, on the surface. Most social situations fail that filter. Not because the people are bad, not because the environment is wrong, but because the conversation doesn't reach the depth your mind needs to actually feel present in it. You would rather have no conversation than a shallow one, and that preference, that instinctive, automatic filtering for quality over quantity, is something research consistently links to highly intelligent and emotionally aware people. Their brains prioritize depth over breadth. They save their limited social energy for interactions that actually matter. They don't avoid connection, they refuse to waste it on exchanges that offer nothing real. This isn't antisocial, it's selective. And selectivity, the refusal to spend your most valuable resource on something that doesn't meet your standard, is a sign of a mind that values quality in every area of life. Not just conversation, everything. Reason 2, low need for external validation. This one goes deeper, into something most people never examine about why they socialize in the first place. Most people socialize, in part, to see themselves through others' eyes, to receive confirmation that they're liked, that they're valued, that they belong. Social interaction functions as a validation system, a mirror that reflects back the message, "You matter." But if you consistently choose solitude, it often means you've developed something genuinely rare, a strong internal compass. You don't need a crowd to tell you who you are. You don't need agreement to feel confident in your own thinking. You don't need someone else's approval to feel that what you believe is worth believing. Your self-worth is generated from within, not borrowed from the responses of the people around you. Psychology calls this an internal locus of control, the sense that your value, your direction, and your stability come from inside rather than from the environment. This is genuinely uncommon. Most people spend their entire lives outsourcing their sense of worth to whatever social mirror is closest. You stopped doing that maybe a long time ago, maybe without ever consciously deciding to. And that independence creates something the people around you can feel even when they can't quite name it. A quiet confidence that doesn't need the room to confirm it. That confidence is rare, and it was built in solitude. Reason 3. Heightened sensitivity to social noise. This one is neurological, and it explains something most people never consider about why socializing costs you more than it costs others. For most people, socializing is talking, listening, responding, a relatively straightforward exchange of words and attention. For you, it's something else entirely. When you're in a social environment, you're not just processing conversation, you're simultaneously processing body language, tone of voice, hidden agendas, environmental noise, emotional undercurrents, the subtle atmospheric shifts that happen between people that most individuals walk through without registering at all. Your nervous system processes social information at a depth most people never access, and that depth has a cost. It drains faster, exhausts more completely, requires longer recovery. Research on sensory processing sensitivity describes people whose nervous systems are wired to take in more, to process stimulation more deeply, more thoroughly, and with more metabolic cost than average. That isn't weakness, that's depth. But depth without recovery leads to depletion. Solitude isn't just being alone for you, it's a sensory reset, a necessary decompression for a nervous system that processes social environments at a register most people don't even know exists. You're not weak for needing quiet. Your system simply processes more than the average person's does, and that processing invisible, continuous, exhausting is exactly why the silence feels so necessary when it finally comes. If you've recognized yourself in any of these 3 reasons, you're exactly who UNFELT was built for. Subscribe and hit the bell. There's more here that was made for the people who have always processed the world differently and have never heard that difference accurately named. The next 4 reasons go even deeper. Stay with me. Reason 4. The observer archetype. Some people find more joy in watching the world than participating in its noise. Not from detachment, not from loneliness, from fascination. You observe patterns that other people miss. You watch the dynamics underneath social interaction, the power plays, the performances, the moments of genuine connection hidden inside the surface exchange. You notice who is really listening, who is performing, who is comfortable, and who is pretending to be. And you see all of this without being asked to, without trying to, simply because your mind is built to observe before it participates. Psychology describes something called the outsider's perspective, the vantage point that becomes available only to people who consistently step outside the social dynamic rather than being absorbed by it. That perspective is extraordinarily valuable. It's where original thinking comes from, where creative insight lives, where objective analysis becomes possible because you're watching from a position that the people inside the dynamic can never access. You aren't lonely. You're observing. And that observation practiced consistently across a lifetime produces a depth of understanding about human nature that most people who are constantly inside the noise never develop. Your position outside the crowd isn't a failure of connection. It's the vantage point from which the most accurate understanding of connection becomes possible. Reason 5. Protection of cognitive energy. This one matters more than most people realize. Deep thinkers and introverted minds have a limited social battery, and this isn't metaphor, it's neuroscience. The brain uses genuine metabolic resources when processing social environments: glucose, oxygen, neurochemical reserves that are measurable and finite. For some people, the cost of social processing is significantly higher than average. Their system works harder, processes deeper, expends more, and that cost leaves less available for everything else. You view your time and energy as finite resources, and you've made a decision, maybe consciously, maybe instinctively, about how those resources are best invested. You would rather spend that energy on a passion project, a book, deep reflection, meaningful creative work. The kind of thinking that produces something real, something lasting, rather than spending it on a night out that leaves you emptied rather than fulfilled. This isn't avoidance. This is resource management. The decision to protect your cognitive energy, to guard the limited reserve of mental fuel that allows you to think clearly, create meaningfully, and function at your best is one of the most intelligent allocation strategies a mind can develop. You're not lazy for choosing quiet. You're strategic. And the things you produce with that protected energy, the depth of thought, the quality of work, the clarity of insight, are the proof. Reason 6, high emotional intelligence. This one surprises most people, because it's the opposite of what they expect. Most people assume that choosing to be alone means you're emotionally disconnected, that you retreat into solitude because emotional engagement is too difficult. Psychology suggests the exact opposite may be true. People who are genuinely comfortable in solitude often have unusually high emotional intelligence. They are so attuned to their own emotions, so capable of sitting with difficult feelings, processing complex internal states, and navigating their inner world without external distraction, that they don't need the noise of a crowd to avoid themselves. And here's the thing most people never say out loud. Most people socialize, in part, to distract themselves from themselves. The noise, the activity, the constant stimulation of other people's energy. It fills the space that silence would otherwise expose, the space where thoughts get uncomfortable and feelings demand attention. You don't need that distraction. You're comfortable in the silence that most people find threatening. Not because you feel less than they do, because you've developed something rare, the capacity to be fully present with yourself, to sit in your own emotional landscape without needing external input to feel stable. That is not emotional weakness. That is emotional sophistication at its most developed. Reason 7, the search for mental autonomy. The 7th reason, the deepest one, the one that ties everything together. When you are with other people, even people you love, even people you trust, your thoughts are subtly influenced by the group's energy, by their opinions, by their moods, by the invisible social pressure to align, agree, and accommodate. You can feel it happening. The slight adjustment of your thinking in response to someone else's presence. The way your opinions become less certain when there are other voices in the room. The way decisions that felt clear in solitude become muddied the moment someone else's perspective enters the equation. You choose solitude to protect something specific. Your mental autonomy, the ability to think your own thoughts, hear your own voice clearly. Make decisions that are genuinely, completely yours, uninfluenced by the gravitational pull of other people's energy, expectations, and unspoken demands. Only in total quiet can you hear yourself completely. Not the version of yourself that accommodates, not the version that adjusts, not the version that softens its thinking to maintain social harmony. The actual version, the honest one, the one that only exists when no other mind is present to influence it. And hearing yourself clearly, honestly, without the noise of other minds interfering, is something you've come to value more than almost anything social life can offer. That isn't isolation. That is the highest form of self-possession, and it only happens in silence. Now step back and look at all 7 together, because there's one truth underneath all of them. Every single reason on this list points to the same underlying reality, a mind that is self-sustaining. That doesn't need external stimulation to feel alive. That doesn't need social validation to feel worthy. That processes the world deeply enough that it requires genuine quiet to function at its best. You don't choose solitude because something is missing. You choose it because something is present, a depth of inner life, a quality of self-awareness, a capacity for independent thought that most people never quite develop. That presence is rare, and rare things require protection. So, let me be clear about what solitude actually is, because the world has gotten this wrong for a long time. Solitude is not a sentence. It is not exile. It is not the thing you settle for when connection fails. For people like you, solitude is the space where the mind works best, where creativity lives, where clarity happens, where the self that gets diffused in social environments finally gets to exist in its complete, unedited, fully honest form. You haven't failed at socializing. You've succeeded at something most people never attempt: building a genuine, sustainable, deeply fulfilling relationship with your own mind. That relationship is not inferior to the ones other people build with each other. It's simply different, and it deserves the same respect. Solitude isn't a sentence. It's a superpower that only works in silence. And I want to leave you with something before we go. You are not broken for preferring your own company. You are not antisocial for choosing quiet over noise. You are not missing out on life by spending it in the one place where your mind actually feels at home. The world will always tell you to get out more, to socialize more, to be more present in places that drain you. You don't have to listen. You have built something rare, a relationship with yourself that most people never develop, a mind that sustains itself, a life that doesn't require constant external input to feel complete. That is not something to fix. That is something to protect. Before you go, which of these 7 reasons resonated most with you? Drop the number in the comments. 1 through 7. Are you the observer? Are you protecting your cognitive energy? Are you searching for mental autonomy? Or did the selective socialization filter feel most true? I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely curious which one landed for you. And if this video finally gave language to something you've been carrying quietly for years, subscribe to UNFELT. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. This channel exists for the people who have always experienced the world differently and have never heard that difference accurately explained. You're exactly who this was made for.